Hi, Brandon. Thank you so much for joining us today. And this is really an honor to have you on the show. Before we dive in, can you give us a quick introduction about yourself and what Shield AI does?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Brandon Tseng. I'm the president and co-founder of Shield AI. Before starting Shield AI, actually 11 years ago to this day, I was a U.S. Navy SEAL. I deployed twice to Afghanistan, once to the Pacific Theater, and once to the Arabian Gulf. I have a mechanical engineering background and really excited to chat with you. Our mission is to protect service members and civilians with artificially intelligent systems. In pursuit of this mission, we are building the world's best AI pilot and next-generation aircraft. The easiest way to think of an AI pilot is self-driving technology for unmanned systems, the same things that a Tesla or a Waymo are doing, taking in a bunch of sensor information, thinking about that, and then acting in the physical world. Shield AI is using those same techniques for military unmanned systems. And so we build an AI pilot called Hivemind. We've applied it to now 28 different classes of platforms. And then we're building 2 aircraft right now. We build the VBAT, which is a reconnaissance drone, and XBAT, which is a first of its kind vertical takeoff, launch and land fighter jet that is AI piloted also by Hivemind.
My first question, I have to go back to the time you at Navy SEAL. A few weeks ago, I read a book called Project Maven, and you got interviewed by authors. So you mentioned that is in Afghanistan, you saved your life by Palantir software. So I'm curious about what's happened that moment and what it mean to you.
Yeah, with Palantir, it was really amazing. We were using their software in 2013, and I've told Sham Sankar and Alex Karp this. I actually just gave an interview for a documentary being built about Palantir about this story. But their product helped organize all of the intelligence information that we had and made it presentable and digestible by folks like myself so that we could make better decisions. And in this particular instance, it was giving us information about where all the IED SIGACs, significant activities around IED emplacements were. And, long story short, we were asked to go into a village to clear it. When I looked up on Palantir, the intelligence picture said this village was full of IEDs. It wasn't strategic in any way. And so I used that information to convince my commanding officer not to conduct this mission. And had a bunch of Navy SEALs thank me for not, for standing up for them. But I wouldn't have been able to do that had I not had the Palantir product. And I think that was really my first foray into, the power of a product, a software product in defense. To be clear, I actually didn't think about it too much when I was thinking about Shield AI. But it wasn't until later that when I was reflecting on, it's like, okay, there was this company that had really trailblazed in the industry, the defense industry, and definitely pointed to Palantir as an example of what Shield AI could be in terms of making mission impact.
And after Afghanistan, you came back, and in 2015, you started Shield AI with your brother Ryan and Andrew Reiter. So your first product was a small quadcopter called Nova, and it's fly into buildings and ahead of soldiers. So from what I understand, Hivemind was already in that Nova, right?
Yep.
So
Nova was powered by Hivemind. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm curious about why a drone for building for a very first product, and why start from there?
Yeah, terrific question. We started with a drone that could go inside buildings. First and foremost, it was a problem space that I was very, very, very familiar with. And it was a super important problem to the military. No mission had killed more service members than the mission of close quarters combat since 2001. And thought we, by building an indoor quadcopter, we could help solve this problem. We thought of it also as a good stepping stone. No one was going to hand us over the keys to an F-16 when you're a 3-person company with no, track record of success. You had to earn your right to the keys to an F-16. But by flying a small quadcopter inside, we could show people what we meant by AI pilots. We could actually start delivering value to the customers. I often tell investors that our quadcopter was like our Tesla Roadster. Tesla built a sports car not to be a sports car company, but to use it as a stepping stone to get to bigger, more strategic impact on the world. we use that quadcopter as a stepping stone to show people the value of an AI pilot, but also to get to more strategic mission impact in the world. So very proud of that product. It's been used in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria. It would go inside some buildings. Suicide bombers blew themselves up when they saw this product. When they saw Nova on the missions. So couldn't be more proud of it. Absolutely brought service members home safely to their families.
So like Palantir software saved you in that moment. Is there connect with Nova came out?
For Nova, yeah, Nova absolutely saved service members' lives on a variety of different missions. The inspiration for Nova really was, actually, I remember doing one training mission, and I remember like I was a Navy SEAL. I was doing training, and we would do force on force where we would shoot each other with paint rounds. And I did everything right, and we're clearing this building, and I still got shot in the face with a paint round. And you take it very seriously. I would have been dead had that been a real round. And I was like, I had just done everything right. Why did I still lose? I'd followed all my training to a T, executed it perfectly. But and the saying in warfare is the enemy gets a say also. And this was, again, it just played into this idea that there was a better way to do this mission set that had been so dangerous for so long.
Yeah. And back in 2018, was anyone else putting AI on drones?
No one was putting AI in drones in 2018.
Because when I look back, that was really amazing.
Back in 2015, people thought AI was for recognizing cat pictures. Yeah. And then even like in 2017, 18, right, they had started Project Maven, which was about AI. And again, it was like about classifying pictures. And people, for whatever reason, did not understand that, AI could be put on actual physical devices for navigating the physical world. Now I'm very thankful for Jensen Huang talking about physical AI, which is, autonomous vehicles at the end of the day. But for whatever reason, people didn't understand it, back then.
So what was the hardest parts for you and Ryan in those early days?
Oh, man, the hardest parts. The hard part is building an autonomous system. There's probably like the two hardest parts are like the technology and then like the market. And like certainly the investors in the early days, it was really hard. But I would actually say like the product was harder. And then navigating government markets, it was probably the hardest thing because so many military markets, they only buy if there's a requirement for it, right? But there was no written requirement, no validated requirement. No one asked for an AI pilot on an unmanned system. No one asked for an AI pilot on a quadcopter that could go inside buildings. And so there was simply very little funding for that project because no one knew it was possible. And this has been, something I've worked on for a long time with U.S. military, with U.S. Congress, and with international militaries. You don't want the customer to actually define their requirements. You don't want them to say, here's exactly what you need to build. You want them to describe the problem and let the entrepreneurs, let the companies come up with the best way to solve the problems. And so that has probably been the hardest thing, continues to be the hardest thing to this day. It's not the products, not the technology. It's the market. Operating in these military acquisition systems is pretty challenging.
Like Pentagon try to buy more hardware is about not software, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things, right? It's helping them understand that, the value of software. And certainly I do think Shield AI has made good inroads here. I spent a lot of time talking to the U.S. Air Force about bifurcating the acquisition of hardware and software for their CCA program. And so Shield AI, you probably had seen it. We were selected as the AI pilot provider for the Anduril Fury for the Air Force CCA program, right? And Anduril's the hardware provider. Shield AI is the software provider. Our team's getting along great. It's working out very well. But it was helping the military and the government understand that, hey, if you want more competitive software, if you want better software products, you should actually think about, splitting it out at the end of the day.
Yeah, so we have to dive into the Hivemind itself. And
Yep.
for a listener new to Shahed AI, can you walk us through how Hivemind actually works and just in simple terms?
Yeah, I'm going to put it in pretty simple terms. I'll probably go a layer deep. Hopefully you have some audience members who like the little bit of technical aspect around it. But I'll actually go very simple, a little bit more complex, and then probably one more layer of complexity, and then I'll stop there. At the simplest way, you and I, we're autonomous systems, right? We perceive our environment with our eyes, our ears, our senses, right? Our nose, our sense of taste, smell, touch. And then we use our brain to think about the world. And then we actuate our muscles supported by our skeleton to move around the world. So we're autonomous systems. Hivemind works exactly like you and I. So Hivemind also works like a self-driving car, which also works like you or I. So it perceives its world with, a self-driving car perceives its world with cameras or a LiDAR. It uses its GPU to think about its world. And then it actuates its motors and its steering drive to navigate around the world. And then it takes all that information just like you or I, and it thinks about, what it could have done better. It learns from its experiences just the same way that you and I learn from our experiences. So at the core of it, Hivemind is an AI and autonomy framework that works, again, like any other self-driving car, but perception, cognition, action. If you take it last step further, right? If you talk about, it's made up of a series of different software modules. And so I'm pretty sure six core software modules. There's a state estimation software module. State estimation is basically, it's the study of where am I in the world, like estimating where you are. There's a mapping module, right? And so we use our eyes to map out the world. A self-driving car will use cameras or LiDARs to map out the world, but the combination of state estimation and mapping is how you get away without using GPS, right? Which is a core value proposition of Hivemind. There is a path planning module, which is essentially, okay, now that I have a map of the world, now that I know where I am in the world, what are the steps that I should take? There's what we call a global reasoning module, which is essentially what is your mission? Is your mission to fly inside buildings? Is your mission to fight F-16s? Dogfighting mission? Is it to conduct surveillance operations, or is it to fly logistics missions? That's the global reasoning module. Then you have what we call a scene understanding module. You can think of this as your computer vision module. For a quadcopter, is that a person? Is that a person with a weapon? Is that a window? Is that a door, right? All of those are used to help navigate. A self-driving car would be is that a car? Is that a pedestrian? Is that a cyclist? Is that an animal? For some of our larger systems, is that a surface-to-air missile system? Is that a radar system? But it's taking that visual imagery or other sensor input in deciding what that is. We call that scene understanding its environment, understanding its scene. And then the last one is the controls module, which is basically, how do you actuate your motors to navigate around the world, or whatever steering rudders that you have. So those are the 6 modules that really make up the AI pilot that is flying on the unmanned system. And then there's an entire infrastructure and developer ecosystem that goes into Hivemind that enables for rapid iteration tests and development. That's Hivemind.
Yeah. And we know modern warfare is full of electronic warfare. So the first thing day zero, enemy just jam GPS and cut your communication. So how does Hivemind handle it?
Yeah.
And how do you keep flying without any GPS?
Yep.
GPS is gone.
So you're leveraging that state estimation module and that mapping module, right? It's because it's building a map as it goes. Just as when I came in here, I built a map of the room. I don't think of it as a map, but you just do that subconsciously, and now I can navigate freely around the map. I don't need GPS to localize where I am. I know that I'm 1 meter from this door, half a meter from you. That's what Hivemind's doing on board these systems and how it enables them to operate while GPS or communications are jammed. I do want to hit on one pretty interesting thing, and I'm just going to reiterate it because you talked about GPS jamming, communications jamming. It is still the number one problem on the battlefield. I will say we operate our VBAT, which is powered by Hivemind, and we're operating one-way attack drones powered by Hivemind in Ukraine every day. Every single one of those missions, GPS and communications are jammed. I just got done engaging with a bunch of U.S. military personnel around the problem with Iran right now. And number one problem, GPS jamming, communications jamming, where now only a very, very small percentage, 1 in 10, less than 1 in 10 of our drones or our one-way attack systems are actually working in those environments. And certainly that's a problem when we think about Taiwan, national security, security around the Strait of Taiwan, because certainly you're going to see China do the exact same thing, which is jam GPS, jam communications. And my concern is that Taiwan will have a bunch of equipment that does not work because it is reliant on GPS. So that's something that, not to jump ahead, but that's something that we're working with Taiwan industry with, Taiwan M&D with, Taiwan government with.
Yeah, a more big question is try to jam GPS. There's lots of approach to defend that. And is that change lots of way to Hivemind? Like now you use it, it's not the before you used.
Yeah, I'll say electronic warfare evolves, right? And so we have to continue to evolve different aspects of Hivemind to keep up with it. And it's a good question. Like when we solved GPS and communications jamming operation in Ukraine, the Russians then tried new things, right? And we had to then solve some of the new things that they had instituted. And so it's always, I would say at this point, we're ahead of them and ahead of the cat and mouse game, but certainly it's an area that you constantly have to iterate on.
Yeah, today Hivemind already run on VBAT and Endurance Fury YFQ44 and the F-16. And now Taiwan's company Thunder Tiger Sea Shark. So all very different companies and products. So was this cross plan from Vision part of plan from the beginning, or was it just did it grow it over time?
Yeah, no, funnily, this was like the original vision for Shield AI. I wanted, I asked myself in 2015, what does the military of 2035 look like? And what is the role that AI and autonomy plays in said military? Decided that, unmanned systems would vastly outnumber manned systems. Decided that every single one of these unmanned systems would be powered, commanded, and maneuvered by AI. And that you would, even outside of the military, you're going to see a world full of autonomous systems. And so Shield AI's objective has been to, help build that world of autonomous systems. Starting certainly with the military unmanned systems, but eventually we'll do some commercial systems. But that I would say, same vision from day one.
And let's start with VBAT. VBAT is your main aircraft today. It's small, only 180 pounds, and it's take off vertically, and it's much cheaper than all the Predator drones. So VBAT is now flying in Ukraine, Romania, and Japan, and there's lots of way. So what is VBAT doing today that older, more expensive drone can do?
Yeah, so VBAT it's a great question. As you said, VBAT is it's a reconnaissance drone that does the mission of a Predator or Reaper or MQ-4 Triton drone for a fraction of the cost. A Predator or Reaper drone costs roughly $1 million. When you look at, a Predator or Reaper drone costs roughly $40 million US. A VBAT drone costs, roughly $1 million. And so we're doing the exact same mission set. That mission is really about intelligence collection at the end of the day. And if you, again, I spent a lot of time with military officials talking about the Strait of Hormuz and the problem with Iran and what they're experiencing right now. The number one problem is not a shortage of weapons. The number one problem is a shortage of intelligence. They do not have an all-seeing eye happening over the strait. You have Iranians who are, the IRGC coming out of caves, coming out of houses, launching Shahed drones into the strait, and then going back inside before the U.S. military can even see what they're doing. That is very similar to the problem I experienced in Afghanistan and Iraq. General McChrystal, a very famous U.S. general that was the leader in Afghanistan for a long time, used to say intelligence drives operations. That was absolutely true. As a Navy SEAL, we would not conduct drone strikes. We would not conduct raids, direct action raids, unless we had an intelligence picture or targeting picture. And so VBAT is providing that intelligence and targeting picture to our customers across the world. And we aspire to bring VBAT to Taiwan, both to the Coast Guard and to the Navy, to help provide that maritime intelligence picture around the entirety of the island, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah, and what's the roadmap for VBAT from here? And can you share the different situation VBAT using in this?
Yeah, so some of the missions that VBAT has been on. I'll actually start with in the United States, we work with the U.S. Coast Guard, and we do drug interdictions. And so the U.S. Coast Guard will fly VBAT out ahead of its ships, its national security cutters, 100 miles away, maybe 150 kilometers away. I'd have to do my math on whether that was an accurate, whatever, 100 miles is what I'll say. They will search an area looking for drug runners. They'll identify them. They'll find drug smugglers. With the U.S. Coast Guard will then call in a helicopter to interdict the drug smugglers. Now, a helicopter only has about 2 hours of endurance versus the VBAT, which has 12 plus hours of endurance. And it takes a long time to find these targets. So again, you fly out there and then you have to be looking for this time. And so they didn't actually have this capability previously. Now we're able to help them find these drug smugglers. In Ukraine, again, it's a wartime situation versus a peacetime border security situation. The Ukrainians will send VBAT while GPS and communications are jammed. We've been operating in Crimea. We've been operating in very deep past the forward line of troops. What VBAT is, it's the number one long distance drone in Ukraine. They actually measure their drone teams, hundreds of drone teams. They measure them all and they come out with rankings every month. Most recently, VBAT was ranked number one for average distance of target detections, and then number 7 in target detections, total targets detected. And it's when they go out, they're looking for strategic targets. They're looking for surface-to-air missile systems. They're looking for radar systems. They are looking for drone headquarters, drone emplacement sites. These are high-priority targets. And once VBAT finds them, then what the Ukrainians will do is they will send one-way attack drones to those targets. Sometimes the Ukrainians will send 20 one-way attack drones on a target. They'll hit that target. VBAT will watch the entire strike happen, and the Ukrainians will see that. And then they'll conduct battlefield damage assessment. They'll see if the target was destroyed. If it wasn't destroyed, they'd send more one-way attack drones. If it was destroyed, great, they know it was destroyed, and then they will wait for reinforcements to arrive, and then they'll hit the reinforcements. That's how VBAT is being used in Ukraine.
So VBAT is now using in Taiwan?
Not yet. We are working to get it active in Taiwan. And again, I would say the typical mission set for VBAT in Taiwan would be to patrol the Taiwan Strait or any of the maritime border around Taiwan. And, again, provide that maritime domain awareness, provide that intelligence picture so that the Taiwanese Navy, the Taiwanese Coast Guard, MND, can actually have better intelligence to make more informed decisions.
Yeah. Now let's talk about XBAT. XBAT is a big leap. Full unmanned flight jetter and vertical takeoff supersonic. And in recent years, runway keep getting bombed in day zero. So SBAT doesn't need a runway. Can you walk us through about what's different between SBAT and VBAT? And did the past few wars push Shield AI into building XBAT?
Yep. So VBAT is a reconnaissance drone that weighs 180 pounds and does the mission of Predator or Reaper. XBAT is an AI-piloted fighter jet that weighs 20,000 pounds fully loaded with fuel and weapons and does the mission of a 5th or 6th generation fighter jet or bomber for a fraction of the cost. And I think that's what you're seeing. You're seeing these new unmanned systems do the mission of legacy systems for much cheaper, right? In the same way my mobile phone can do the same thing that my desktop computer can do. And there's many more mobile phones than there are desktop computers. That's what you're seeing. You're seeing many more unmanned systems do the mission of these legacy systems cheaper, faster, better. You said it, right? XBAT does not require runways. Runways are day zero targets. There was just a report out. The United States has lost $2.5 billion worth of airplanes in the Iran conflict. Most of those, the vast majority of those, were lost on the runways. When the Iranians would target our airplanes in Israel or Saudi Arabia on the runways. Certainly you see that in Russia, Ukraine, where both sides have tried to attack each other's runway systems. And then, as we think about Taiwan, right, you're very limited runways, very geographically constrained. The Taiwan Air Force relying on those runways today. And, right, XBAT will help get them not reliant on the runways. So that's what we're working on. There are a number of other differences that I can go in terms of the engine and why it's different than the other collaborative combat aircraft that are being built. But I'll say it's like we wanted to build XBAT because we wanted to solve the number one problem for the U.S. military in the Pacific theater, which was how do you create geographically distributed long-range fires, right? Something that could be survivable against a threat like China.
Yeah. And I follow your Twitter for a while now. You shared Kelly Johnson interview a while back. Kelly Johnson was the head of Dunk Works at Lockheed. So he said his big disappointment was never getting VTOL work. And now Sure AI's XBAT can do it right now. So what did Kelly Johnson generation never crack that you guys can do today?
Yeah, no, it's I love that you brought that up. It is really cool. And great credit to all those folks that worked on vertical takeoff, launch, and land. And again, I think what people don't realize, XBAT's not necessarily a new concept. It's the U.S. Air Force had a vertical takeoff, launch, and land fighter jet in the 50s. It was the X-13, and it was doing basically the same concept that Shield AI is doing with the XBAT, except it was using a human pilot. And it's really hard to be a pilot that lands something if you're staring up the entire time and can't see what you're supposed to land on. And the second thing was the engine technology just wasn't good enough back in 1950 to actually make vertical takeoff, launch, and land useful, right? That airplane couldn't carry any payload. It could only fly for like 45 minutes, which wasn't good enough to actually solve any meaningful problems. And so, two things have happened since 1950, a lot more things, but like in the aerospace, as we think about VTOL, the engine technology got much better. We're using the GE F-110, which is the same engine used in the F-16. And so we can fly for much longer with very useful payload and still do that vertical takeoff, launch, and land. And then we got rid of the human pilot, right? We have an AI pilot. So, you don't have a human pilot trying to land vertically and take off vertically while staring up in the sky. So those are the two things that make XBAT possible now, almost 76 years later. And the last thing I'll say is it is kind of interesting, these concepts. Sometimes technology just has to keep up, right? Or advance, right? AI and a lot of the algorithms around AI were talked about, written about in like the 80s, the 90s, but the computing power was not good enough to actually do useful AI. Now the computing power is there. Rockets that would land were discussed in like the 1960s and 70s, but the software, the engine technology, it wasn't good enough. And people forgot it, and then Elon Musk revived it back, almost 40 years later. So it's funny how that works sometimes.
Yeah. So let's start talk about in Taiwan. You signed NC integration deal in February, but before you even set up here, you were already in talk with AIDC. So for listeners who don't know the full picture, can you walk us through about what's the NCIC deal with, and what's the biggest story your AIDC partnership?
Yeah. First, I'll just, sometimes people say, why are you in Taiwan? I tell everybody, like, look, if your mission is to protect service members, civilians, and deter conflict, I can't think of a better place to be. I wish that Shield AI was of the size or capacity that we are now. If we had been able to and had the products to the maturity that we have now, we could have helped a lot more, in Ukraine and deterring the conflict before it even started. Had Ukraine been able to put up, 1,000 drones on its border, VBATs, even one-way attack drones, I don't think you would have seen Russia invade. And so we're trying to do something similar here with Taiwan to help deter conflict. And that's why Shield AI is heavily invested in Taiwan and will continue to invest in Taiwan. So specifically with what we're doing here, three main things, VBAT, XBAT, and Hivemind, right? With AIDC, it's about VBAT, XBAT, and Hivemind. AIDC is partnered with us on VBAT and helping us get that operation going with the Navy and helping with the Coast Guard in terms of, they're just our local partner. Will help with training, maintenance, operation, logistics. We think about that as a long-term approach. Really, VBAT was the way that we could start working together immediately. But as we think about XBAT, AIDC is a great composite manufacturer. XBAT uses a lot of composites. And we think they could be a great partner on something like XBAT. And I guess a fun fact is now Taiwan makes up, 2 years ago, it was less than 1% of our supply chain. Now it's 16% of our supply chain, Taiwanese vendors. We aim to have 25% of our supply chain made up by Taiwanese vendors. So we're, we think very highly of the Taiwan supply chain ecosystem and are invested in it. With NSYST, that was about supporting local Taiwan industry and MND with some AI and autonomy capabilities. And Hivemind, we enable other countries, companies to build their own AI pilots using the technology that using the same infrastructure, developer tools, and pipelines that Shield AI uses. We package it up to enable other governments and companies to use just like Shield AI. And so that's to say NSYST is building, arguably Taiwan's first sovereign AI pilots, and we're supporting them and helping them build it. And why is that important? Taiwan does not want to have to ask Shield AI, hey, can you make updates to our AI pilots if there was a conflict going on? They don't want to have to ask the United States of America, hey, can you update our AI pilots if they're in the middle of a fight? They want to have that ability themselves, indigenous to their national security capabilities. In the same way, Taiwan built out an indigenous submarine program because they didn't want to have to rely on others. This would be another reason to, this is what we're seeing also. They're investing in Hivemind at NSYST at that level because they don't necessarily want to be reliant on other people to provide their AI. So we're doing swarming drones with NSYST. We're doing flight test demonstrations with them, I think, next month. And we're working with NSYST and other companies, Thunder Tiger being one of them. So we're trying to enable Taiwan companies to build their own AI pilots so that they don't have to, make the $1, $2, $3 billion investment to do so themselves. And they can build it much more quickly by just using our stuff versus having to invest, 11 years and $3 billion to figure out how to do it.
Yeah. I also want to ask about something that just happened on May 8th. Taiwan legislature cut 470 billion NTD from the special defense bill.
Yep.
That including both drones and AI assistant C5ISR. So how do you think about that? And does it change anything about your AI plans and position in Taiwan?
So there, when I think about the special defense budget that was passed, I think it's a good, a nice step forward for Taiwan national security. I think there's additional steps that need to be taken. And Shield AI specifically, like we are investing in the long term for Taiwan, like it will be over many, many years. And so this was one special defense budget. I think, one thing that we want to make sure and we're working on is that you see capabilities like reconnaissance drones and some of these things like VBAT was lumped into direct commercial sales. And obviously the legislature did not pass things that were in the direct commercial sales. So one of the things I'm doing here is I'm trying to figure out, I'm working with MND, with the Navy and, with the LY and the EY to figure out, hey, this capability has been called out as important. Want to make sure that Taiwan has this capability because I do think it is critical for deterring conflict. It is a critical enabler of so many of the other weapon systems that are being purchased. And so trying to figure out the path forward to make sure that the Navy and the Coast Guard get these capabilities, is something that I'm working on.
Yeah, and on May 13th, you signed MOU with Thunder Tiger to integrate Hivemind to the Sea Shark. So with the live demo in this summer, so I think that was the first time Hivemind occurs from air to water in Taiwan.
In Taiwan, it's the first time. It's the second time we've partnered with Huntington Ingalls Industry, which is the largest shipbuilder in the United States. We're doing the AI pilots for some of their unmanned surface vessels and unmanned underwater vehicles. And so we are, doing the same thing with Thunder Tiger. It's pretty cool. Like we've already seen the Hivemind pilot the Thunder Tiger unmanned surface vessel. And, I was checking in with the team today and they said, yeah, they want to actually do more advanced behaviors, more advanced missions. And so I'm really excited about it. It's really cool.
And Shahed AI cooperate lots of Taiwan's company. And what does success actually look like for indigenized capability Shahed AI is trying to build in Taiwan?
That's a good question. I think it's like, look, I would love to see, I'm going to go ahead and say like, what does success look like? Hopefully like 80% of the drones are powered by Hivemind. I would actually say like higher because I don't think there's an alternative, a good alternative out there. 80% of the drones that are locally produced would be powered by Hivemind. I think you would see, VBATs deployed across the perimeter of Taiwan, conducting operations every single day, providing that intelligence picture to MND, that reconnaissance picture to MND and to the decision maker. And then all the metrics. So that's like Hivemind, that's VBAT. Then it's like I said, I want us to be using 25% of Taiwan's supply chain. And then the fourth, I would love to figure out, a co-development effort with Taiwan on something like the XBAT. So, and then probably like the fifth thing is like, I think that probably equates to like having, 200 plus employees in Taiwan within 3 to 5 years is probably how I think about that. So those are all the metrics for success in Taiwan. And like I said, we're here for the long haul. It's a great ecosystem. It's a great, like we believe in the mission and think there's not really a more important place in the world to be if you want to deter a future conflict. And so we're here to stay. Hopefully people get used to seeing Shield AI around in Taiwan.
Yeah, and you're also actively hiring engineers in Taiwan. And what kind of talent or trait and that are you looking for? And what does your team here look like 1 or 2 years or long term?
Yeah. So one, we're looking for a lot of different roles, everything from engineering to supply chain to business development. And so I would say it's like first and foremost, we're looking for people who believe in the mission, that want to get involved, that are experts in a domain. Like they have a subject matter expertise, are world class. It's something that they do, whether it's engineering, supply chain, business development, sales, highly motivated, want to make it happen. And I'm not going to pigeonhole like we'll be, again, with those grand ambitions of what we're trying to do. Yes, the first folks have been business development, government relations, engineering, and supply chain, but it's like eventually we'll hire HR folks, we'll hire legal folks out here, right? Again, it's a ecosystem that we're really building out.
Yeah, and one more on Taiwan about Hellscape. Admiral Paparo's idea is if China invades the Taiwan Straits, become a Hellscape of unmanned drones and boats. So your VBAT, XBAT, and Sea Shark and all fit in that picture. So if Hellscape actually happens, and what role does Shahed AI play?
First, our VBAT would be the targeting drone. For every weapon needs targeting, a targeting picture. And again, that's everybody always, it's easy for the public to see weapons, but those weapons don't actually work if you don't have a targeting picture, or they're not going anywhere. They're not getting launched. You don't just shoot missiles or drones at nothing. You need something to shoot them at. VBAT's providing that reconnaissance, that intelligence picture, that targeting picture. It's doing it while GPS and communications are jammed. Hivemind, will enable GPS and comms jammed and swarming for all the other weapon systems, drones, the USVs, the unmanned surface vessels, one-way attack drones. We were recently named to, be the AI pilot provider for the U.S. Lucas program, which is the United States' version of the Shahed drone. We're doing one-way attack drones, swarming drones in Ukraine. It's really amazing stuff that we're doing on the battlefield, enabling these. Again, I if you were to, test all of Taiwan and even the United States' one-way attack drones today, I bet you, and you tested them while GPS and communications are jammed, 1 in 10 of them would be effective. That's just simply unacceptable. You want to have 10 out of 10 of them be effective. That's where Hivemind can really help in support, not just with the swarming, but with the GPS and comms jammed maneuver. And then look, I think XBAT is that long-range strategic system for going after, some of the harder targets, having strategic effects. That's why you have XBAT in place. But I would also claim it's like you talked about the Hellscape. You want to actually prevent the Hellscape. And right, you get there by building out these capabilities, VBAT, Hivemind for the Taiwan drone ecosystem, and XBAT today, not, when there is actually a war going on.
Yeah, Palantir has your partner from the start, but Hivemind also run on Anduril's Fury. So with Anduril and your partner and competitor at the same time. So how do you think about competition in defense technology?
Yeah, there's a funny U.S. term in the defense industry called competimates, meaning you compete and you also become teammates at the same time. That's how it is. And it's like, look, you see this with, Lockheed Martin builds the F-35, but Northrop Grumman builds the computers for the F-35, and Raytheon builds some of the weapons that go into the F-35 and the avionics. That's very much like at the end of the day, the good thing is all those companies, whether it's Palantir, Shield AI, Anduril, Lockheed, Raytheon, Northrop, everybody wants what's best for the warfighter. And if the warfighter says, hey, we want Shield AI software, we want their hardware, like, great. You see both teams willing to team up and work with each other on it.
And that was really usual happen in that field.
I don't think it's unusual. I think it's pretty normal for them to do it. I think what's new is that, for the U.S. Air Force is that there's a software prime and a hardware prime, right? Whereas previously they would just pick a lead systems integrator and say, all right, we're giving one contract out, then that person's going to figure out the hardware and the software. Now they're saying, no, we're going to, the customer's saying we want to keep an eye on both the hardware and the software, which I think is the right call. And that's why they're awarding prime contracts to, someone like an Anduril and someone like a Shield AI.
Okay. And that was one last question before we wrap it up. And you and Ryan and Andrew started Shahed AI in 2015, and 30 VC passed on you. The first DIU contract almost didn't happen. Now Series G raising 1.5 billion. And yesterday, May 25th, was Shahed AI 11th anniversary. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So after all of that, what do you know now that you wish you know at the start?
That's a fantastic question. I'm looking up to this guy, seeing if there's an answer. No, I'll tell you what I actually think is, it's something that I've seen out of like some of our board members and investors who have run companies before and have been through like the worst, and like have come out on the other end. I would not, when you're building a company, and it feels like everything is burning down around you and, it's problem after problem after problem. I think if you actually have like the right culture and the right mindset and team, like you're going to solve those problems. And so in that is what like I wish I knew. It's like, hey, because you stress out a lot, and I've lost a lot of years of my life stressing out about these problems that we had to solve in year 1 or year 2 or year 3 or year 4. And it's like, actually, you know, I tell, you know, our investors today, you know, some of them you'd be like, we tell them our problems and they're like, yeah, you guys will solve them. Right. And they just know that. Right. And some of them, they've been in those shoes where they're just like, yeah, companies, that's what you get paid to do. You're going to solve those problems. Like there's not a point in stressing out about them to the extent that I probably did in the early days. And so that's what I wish I knew. It's like, hey, you're going to solve those problems that come up. Yeah, they can be painful and stressful, but don't worry about them too much.
Thank you so much for your time today. And I have read a ton of Shahed AI, but hearing it straight from you, that was a really different things. Best of luck with everything you are built, and especially in Taiwan. I will keep following Shahed AI, and I can't wait to see Expect to Fly.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.